and foremost, it just revealed the kind of character that we have. The toughness, the relentless spirit, the flexibility.
It's done. The entire operation is on the edge of a complete, catastrophic, system-wide implosion. Music. And the people holding the wheel are throwing fuel into the engine while handing out lit torches to the saboteurs. This isn't just about a sport anymore. Not even close. This is about an open, hostile, and completely undeniable mutiny festering inside the WNBA. A civil war against its own lifeline, its own lottery jackpot, its own final opportunity. Music. Caitlin Clark. And now, this internal war has claimed its first public victim, its first high-profile deserter. They have driven a coach to the breaking point. Music. Not driven her from her job, no, that would be too straightforward, too neat. They forced a decorated, accomplished head coach to abandon the fans, to walk away from the public arena, to surrender on the very principle of accountability. All because the truth, the raw, unfiltered truth thundered by hundreds of thousands of new fans grew too deafening for the crumbling institution to contain. This is a code red, 5-alarm catastrophe. This is a complete structural failure unfolding in real time. And what we are watching is the public destruction of basic common sense, streamed live for the entire planet to witness. You are being deliberately deceived by the mainstream sports media, the so-called analysts who are financially motivated to shield the league. They're serving you pathetic, condescending talking points, instructing you, music. This is just rookie initiation. They're working overtime to convince you this is simply welcome to the league physicality. Music. It is a revolting, see-through lie, and the fans, the real people, the ones who are actually funding this league for the very first time in its desperate history, are screaming the truth from every digital platform available. And their screams, their righteous fury, have finally shattered the carefully constructed fortress of silence and denial. Stephanie White, the head coach of the undefeated #1 ranked Connecticut Sun, just discovered what happens when you participate in the league's filthy little secret and get exposed. Her team, a legitimately talented team, stepped onto the court against the Indiana Fever. And naturally, they went after Caitlin Clark with outrageous, reckless, borderline criminal physicality. It's the only blueprint anyone seems to operate from against her. It's the unspoken, league-wide directive. If you can't outskill her, then punish her body. If you can't outshoot her, then bulldoze her into the third row. It's a playbook built on brutality over brilliance. But this time was entirely different. This time, the response wasn't merely a small ripple of complaints. Music. It was a biblical downpour. An absolute tsunami of raw, unfiltered rage from Caitlin Clark's fanbase. A fanbase that has now become the WNBA's entire paying audience. They are exhausted, and they are enraged at watching the league's single most valuable asset get treated like a human punching bag, game after game. Music, after game. Visual, a rapid, dizzying montage of social media reactions flooding the screen. Show furious tweets, Instagram comments, and YouTube replies, all aimed directly at Stephanie White and the Connecticut Sun's official accounts. Usernames clearly visible, messages sharply highlighted. Disgraceful. This isn't basketball. Protect your stars. The comments were savage. They were relentless. They were completely unsparing. Music. Your team plays dirty and you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Is this a basketball game or a premeditated assault? The league must launch an investigation. You're just another resentful coach. Another figure consumed by jealousy toward a 22-year-old music superstar who possesses more talent in her fingertip than your entire roster holds combined. It continued for hours. A digital army of fans who see with absolute clarity what the league office, the players, and the media refuse to acknowledge. That they are deliberately working to harm, to diminish, and to mentally and physically destroy the one individual capable of elevating this league to a global stage. And what was the outcome of this massive public uprising? What unfolded when the truth was placed directly under the spotlight for everyone to see? Stephanie White couldn't endure music, the weight was too crushing. The truth was too devastating. She deleted her X account. Music. She surrendered. She fled from the conversation because she has absolutely no answer. She has no justification whatsoever. There is no defense for what is taking place. This isn't simply a coach receiving harsh criticism online and deciding to disconnect. This is a foundational fracture running through the entire WNBA infrastructure. A head coach of an undefeated team, no less, was publicly humiliated and driven into digital exile by the very fans her league so desperately, so pitifully needs to stay alive. This is an overwhelming public declaration of no confidence from the entire paying audience. This is the fan base rising up and informing the WNBA in the clearest possible terms. We see the scheme. We see the resentment. Music. We see the coordinated campaign and we refuse to accept it. We will not spend our money watching you dismantle your own greatest asset. Consider the chilling message that sends throughout the entire organization, the league, the veteran players, the coaches. They have collectively built a poisonous, volatile, and dangerous environment not just for Caitlin Clark on the court, but for anyone perceived as belonging to the old establishment that so visibly resents everything she represents. Music. They have cultivated a bitter us versus them warfare mentality, and now it is detonating in their faces in the most spectacular and public fashion imaginable. Music. They genuinely believed they could control the story. They believed they could deploy their media puppets at ESPN to reframe this as routine, to gaslight the millions of new viewers tuning in, but they catastrophically underestimated the force of the people. They underestimated the raw, passionate, and financial commitment that millions of new fans have poured into Caitlin Clark. This is no longer a straightforward sports debate. Music. It is an all-out cultural war. It's an uprising against a fragile, insecure institution so paralyzed by fear of a transcendent superstar that it would sooner burn the entire structure to the ground than confess that she is bigger and more consequential than every single one of them put together. Visual. A slow-motion high-definition clip of Chendi Carter's flagrant foul on Clark replaying over and over. Then, cut to a slow-motion clip of Tiara McCowan's reckless hip check. Superimpose bold red text over the images. This is not basketball. This is a deliberate, targeted assault. Let's be completely, brutally, and painfully transparent. What we are witnessing on a nightly basis is not basketball. It's a coordinated campaign of physical intimidation quietly sanctioned by the thunderous silence of the league office and actively fueled by the revolting jealousy of veteran players who cannot stomach the reality that a rookie is commanding all the attention they never managed to earn. They don't double-team her. They ambush her. They don't box her out. They throw her to the floor the moment the referees look away. And the referees? They are either complicit in this operation, incompetent beyond any reasonable measure, or have received their instructions from somewhere far above the court. There is absolutely no other rational explanation. We have all witnessed it, night after night after night. Music, the cheap shots, the off-ball shoves, the relentless grabbing and clutching. It is irrefutable. It is a humiliation to the sport, and individuals like Stephanie White are the architects of it. Her game plan, like every other coach's game plan this entire season, is constructed around one singular, pathetic objective: physically punish Caitlin Clark until she mentally and physically shatters. And when the fans, the paying customers, confronted her directly about it, she couldn't stand her ground. She fled. She abandoned the conversation entirely. That moment, right there, is a full confession of guilt. It is the single most revealing development in this entire disastrous unfolding. It confirms that they are fully aware that what they are doing is wrong, that it is dirty, and that it is completely indefensible. Music. They simply never, in their most ambitious dreams, anticipated being held responsible for it by a fan base this massive and this ferociously passionate. They assumed their cozy, insulated little world was permanently shielded from music, the judgment of the general public. Well, the walls have been demolished. The tide has arrived, and the financial devastation of this coordinated campaign of institutional self-destruction is going to be absolutely catastrophic for every single person involved. Visual, a powerful split screen. On one side, a completely sold-out arena packed for an Indiana Fever game with thousands of fans draped in Clark jerseys. On the other side, archival footage of a half-empty WNBA arena from a prior season. Music, hollow and completely stripped of atmosphere. Let us never lose sight of the reality this league was living just 6 months ago. The WNBA was, by every honest measure, an organization on life support. It was a league kept breathing by the NBA for decades, a financial sinkhole hemorrhaging money season after season, performing in front of family members, close friends, and a small cluster of deeply devoted followers. It was a niche operation with absolutely no mainstream cultural footprint. Then, one woman stepped forward, Caitlin Clark. Music, and within a single night, she transformed into a one-woman economic rescue mission for an entire dying institution. Ticket prices across the whole league surged over 200%. Viewership numbers are demolishing all-time records, surpassing the NBA and NHL on certain nights. Her jersey became the highest-selling draft pick jersey in the documented history of professional sports, across any sport, male or female, at any point in time. She single-handedly generated such an overwhelming wave of revenue and national attention that she compelled the league to finally, after decades of player grievances, authorize charter flights for every team. She is a one-woman economic phenomenon. Music, any rational business, any organization possessing even the most fundamental instinct for self-preservation, would surround her with industrial-grade protection. They would mandate that referees guard her as though she is an irreplaceable national monument. They would construct every single marketing initiative, music, every television advertisement, every social media campaign entirely around her presence. They would establish her as the undisputed, unapologetic, permanent face of the league and challenge anyone bold enough to contest it. But what has the WNBA actually done? The absolute, complete opposite. They have permitted their jealous, resentful players to use her as a nightly target. The league's biggest personalities, the so-called veterans, rather than delivering her welcome gifts and expressing gratitude for their newfound spotlight and inflated paychecks, have marched onto podcasts and national interviews to undermine her, to publicly complain about her presence, to pour gasoline on an already raging fire of resentment. They are actively contaminating their own water supply out of pure, pathetic, undiluted jealousy. It is the single most staggering, jaw-dropping act of institutional self-sabotage in the entire recorded history of modern professional sports. They were delivered a winning lottery ticket valued at billions of dollars, and they have collectively chosen to set it ablaze. Picture for just one moment if the NBA during the 1980s had concluded that Michael Jordan was accumulating too much individual fame. Imagine if David Stern had permitted the bad boy Pistons' filthy, thuggish brand of basketball to go entirely unpunished and ultimately drive Jordan completely out of the league. The NBA would have collapsed. It would exist today as nothing more than a buried footnote in the archive of sports history. That is the precise cliff's edge the WNBA is teetering on at this very moment in time. They are living through their Michael Jordan moment, and they are consciously, deliberately choosing to become the Detroit Pistons. The entire league is populated with players, coaches, music, and executives who would far rather govern over a kingdom of smoldering ruins than watch a new and rightful queen ascend to claim her throne. Music. And the fans, the ones carrying the money and the influence, are watching every single second of it. I want to read you exactly what you are saying because the mainstream media absolutely will not. They are too spineless. They are too terrified of jeopardizing their relationships with league partners. But your voices are the only currency that carries any real weight anymore. Visual. A series of full-screen tweets and YouTube comments appear, illuminated one by one for maximum devastating emphasis. Here's a comment from user JHawksFan88. Stephanie White deleting her account is the ultimate confession. She coached the Fever last year. She knows firsthand what a generational talent looks like up close. Now she's commanding an undefeated roster and her entire strategy is to have them physically go after Clark. Music. She got publicly exposed and she folded like a wet paper bag. Absolutely spineless. Here's another one from Sarah P22. This is a league-wide operation and it isn't even concealed anymore. The veterans are petrified of being replaced, forgotten, and left completely behind. The WNBA is permitting them to get away with on-court assault because the league office is gutless and terrified of its own player base. And this one captures the entire catastrophe perfectly, from Real Talk Sports Guy. If Adam Silver and the NBA Board of Governors don't intervene and completely dismantle the leadership of the WNBA, music, this league will be filing for bankruptcy within 3 years. You cannot build an entire marketing machine around a superstar and then allow the rest of your employees to physically assault her on national primetime television. It is an HR, PR, music, and financial catastrophe of historically unprecedented proportions. This is the truth. This is the raw, completely unfiltered reality that the WNBA league office is working overtime to suppress and ignore. But you cannot silence a revolution once it has been ignited. Stephanie White just absorbed that lesson in the most brutal and public way imaginable. Her retreat from the public conversation is a perfect symbol of the entire establishment's hopelessly exposed position. They have no answers. They have no justification prepared. They have no coherent, logical defense to present. All they possess is a desperate, flailing effort to preserve a crumbling sliver of authority as the entire world transforms completely around them. The longer they permit this grotesque spectacle to play out unchecked, the more irreversible the damage becomes. Every dirty play that goes uncalled, every jealous remark from a bitter and resentful veteran, every coach who implements a physically punisher strategy, carves another chunk out of the fragile foundation of this hard-won new success. Corporate sponsors will not tolerate being attached to this level of chaos and dysfunction. Music. Parents will not allow their children to look up to players who operate like schoolyard bullies on a professional court. The casual fans, the millions upon countless millions that Caitlin Clark personally ushered through the gates, will grow disgusted and they will walk away. Music. And when they walk away this time, they are never, under any circumstances, coming back. They will leave in their wake a league that is more irrelevant, more of an industry punchline, and more financially destroyed than it was before she ever set foot on the court. That will be the permanent legacy these individuals carry. The players and coaches who systematically drove away the single greatest opportunity ever handed to them out of pure, consuming spite. It is a slow-motion suicide operation, and every one of us is a witness to it. We are observing a league make a deliberate, conscious decision to perish. It is a terrifying, deeply humiliating, and entirely preventable catastrophe. Music. And what does the alternative actually look like? A competent, functioning league. A league operated by individuals who possess a fundamental understanding of business principles. A league that comprehends the science of marketing and brand building. A league that fiercely defends and protects its most irreplaceable assets at all costs. The proven blueprint is sitting right in front of them. Study the NFL and how it guards its quarterbacks. You make excessive contact with a quarterback and you are immediately handed a 15-yard penalty and a crippling financial fine. Examine how the NBA deliberately cultivated and elevated its franchise stars. They rewrote the rulebook to open up the floor for elite scorers to display their full brilliance to the world. Music. They recognized with absolute clarity that audiences pay their hard-earned money to watch Michael Jordan perform, not to watch him get brutalized by Bill Laimbeer every possession. The WNBA has consciously and repeatedly rejected this thoroughly proven model for long-term organizational success. They have deliberately selected the path of absolute chaos. They have deliberately selected the path of corrosive resentment. They have deliberately selected the path of complete self-immolation. And now, they must stand directly in the path of the fiery consequences they have manufactured. This Stephanie White situation is the canary collapsing in the coal mine. It is the first undeniable, fully public indication that the establishment is fracturing under the overwhelming, compounding weight of fan outrage. They can no longer hide behind carefully constructed narratives. They can no longer pretend with a straight face that none of this is happening. We are locked in and fully watching. We have preserved every receipt. We have cataloged every social media post. We have compiled the endless library of damning video evidence. The documentation is overwhelming in its scope, and it is absolutely devastating in its implications. This is a frantic last-gasp lunge by a deteriorating institution to grip a past that nobody cared enough about to mourn, while simultaneously suffocating the golden, promising future that every single paying customer is desperately trying to witness. It cannot continue, and it will absolutely not be permitted to stand. The collapse is imminent if a sweeping, dramatic, and decisive top-down transformation is not executed immediately and without hesitation. The commissioner must step forward and govern with an iron fist. Music. Substantial, meaningful fines must be levied for every single act of dirty play without exception. Suspensions must be handed down swiftly and publicly. A crystal clear, completely unambiguous, and loudly public declaration must be delivered to every player on every roster and every coach on every bench. Caitlin Clark is the undisputed future of this sport. And if you position yourself as an obstacle in her path, if you attempt to harm her in any capacity, you will be swiftly and permanently removed. Anything short of that standard is an outright declaration of open warfare against the fans, against progress itself, and against the fundamental survival instinct of their own league. So, music. I am asking you directly and without reservation, what do you actually see when you sit down and watch these games unfold? Do you see tough, gritty, hard-nosed, snorts, defensive basketball? Or do you see a deliberately orchestrated, coordinated campaign of sustained physical and psychological intimidation? Do you see a coach erasing her entire social media presence as some casual, spontaneous act of digital self-care? Or do you see it for the precise thing it is, a panicked, full-throated admission of guilt crumbling beneath the weight of overwhelming and undeniable public pressure? The battle lines have been permanently drawn into the ground. The mainstream media machine will not surface the truth for you. The league office will never voluntarily confess to what is actively happening beneath the surface. That responsibility rests entirely with us. It falls on the fans who are genuinely paying close attention, music, and single-handedly keeping the financial pulse of this league beating. Sound off in the comments section right now because your voice carries more consequence than it ever has before. Music. Are you standing firmly alongside Caitlin Clark and the entire future trajectory of professional sports, or are you casting your support behind the crumbling, jealousy-consumed, and relentlessly self-destructive establishment that is pouring every available resource into tearing her apart before she can fully reach her extraordinary potential? The decision belongs entirely to you. This is a genuinely defining crossroads moment, and the eyes of the entire world are fixed on the outcome of who ultimately prevails.